It's Jason Abraham, the shadow teacher, sporting the short hair, and there's a good chance the video that pops up tomorrow, my hair is going to be significantly longer. And the reason being is that I have learned a secret power, the power that my enemies flaunt. So the power that the shape-shifting reptilians possess, I too have learned to apply the power of shape-shifting to my hair. All fun and games aside, I've got a serious topic to talk about today in this video. I'm going to talk about two polarizing experiences and how each of these experiences affects our consciousness and what we carry with us going forward. I'm going to talk about transcendent versus traumatic events and experiences and how they affect our consciousness. So first, let's go into the darkness. Let's go into trauma. So trauma, a traumatic event, can be defined as a deeply disturbing or distressing event. And there are varying degrees of this. I would say trauma is not altogether, like some mild traumas I would not consider negative. For instance, a child, part of learning boundaries, necessary boundaries in this 3D world, a child who gets stung by a bee or bitten by a snake, there's a lesson in like a mild trauma, like that type of event. It teaches the child to respect the boundaries of nature and animals. It teaches them healthy respect. Where, if a child is too rough with a dog or cat and gets bitten or scratched, again, that's part of learning healthy boundaries. Now, a deep trauma, like I've experienced a deep trauma. I was dropped on my head when I was really young. I had a deep injury that was an event like that we could call an acute trauma, and an event that is ongoing. You also have traumas that are reoccurring, which could be various forms of abuse, whether they be physical abuse or emotional abuse, emotional psychological abuse, or sexual abuse. These are very serious traumas that can sometimes be, they can happen once, but sometimes a cycle of abuse is what we would call a reoccurring trauma. And the effects, what we do when we experience something that's traumatic, these deeply traumatic experiences, we protect ourselves. Trauma elicits the emotion of retreat, or the emotion of fear, and the actions that go with fear are retreat, contraction, armoring, and these are necessary actions for survival because we need to protect ourselves so that we can keep going. Especially like with a reoccurring trauma, something keeps going on that's deeply distressing and disturbing. In order to stay alive, we have to protect ourselves. And this armoring, these defense mechanisms keep us going. They keep us living to breathe, living to fight another day. But what happens usually is we get to a point in our life where the trauma is no longer there. It's no longer immediate, but yet we're carrying the scars, we're carrying the wounds inside of us, and we're still carrying the behaviors, we're still behaving in a way of protecting ourselves as if the trauma is still going on. And usually the worldview that goes with someone who's been traumatized, it's carried a lot of reoccurring trauma or even acute trauma that they haven't processed, is this view that the world is not a safe place, this view that, ultimately you're broken, you're fractured, and there's something deeply wrong with you and the world. And if this experience continues without healing it, without processing it, then what eventually happens is we just never are able to live in a higher, fuller capacity. Now, on the opposite end here, we have transcendent or mystical experiences. And you could define like a transcendent or a mystical experience is an experience that expands or goes beyond ordinary experience, that alters the way your consciousness perceives the ordinary world, and is in a positive way. It opens up possibilities. And the emotions that and the feelings that go with this is usually wonder and awe, and what I've experienced is deep states of love and connection. And these transcendent experiences inspire curiosity, they inspire courage, they inspire wanting to learn and grow and dig in even more, where again the traumatic experience, the emotion is fear. And with fear, you're running away from something, you're avoiding something. And with a transcendent experience, you have this possibility. These experiences are usually rare and few and far between, but when you have them, you just can't deny them. And they promote this deep sense of awe and wanting to learn, know, do, experience, and feel more of this great mystery of life. Now, another contrast, when one is running on a program of trauma, they're afraid, and there's part of you that does not feel like you're sufficient, so you tend to look to someone else to save you, to fix you, to rescue you. And when you do this, you are basically giving up your sovereignty. You're denying yourself as a sovereign being and setting up situations to where you can easily be controlled and manipulated. Whereas those who have had the mystical experiences, usually you feel a profound sense of connection, where you feel like, wow, I'm really more than I ever thought I was. And there is so much more out there that I'm connected to that I thought is. And you get the exact opposite. You are less likely to be manipulated and controlled because you've experienced something greater, something more expansive. So, whichever, a lot of us are operating on both. Like, I'm still working on healing traumas and accepting them and viewing them, but I've also had many mystical experiences, and those mystical experiences have shaped profoundly what I'm doing right now. So just wherever you're at, take it, most people who watch these, you tend to be on the mystical side. You have done your work, or are doing your work on acknowledging trauma and healing it. And so keep going. If this triggers you, I encourage you to ask why. Simply ask the question why. And I wish you courage on your path. I wish you the energy and the experience. I wish that you have a mystical experience. I wish you have that experience that shakes you up in a positive way and reminds you that there's so much more to who you are than you know. There's so much more to life as we know. And I inspire you to keep wondering, keep digging, and keep going to learn what that is, to experience what that is. And we're never going to fully know and own everything, but just the journey is the beauty of it all. Class dismissed. I'll see you on the other side.